Goods. Maniscalco. Citro.
Here.
Miranda.
Here.
Carlson.
Here.
And Vieira.
Here. Okay, couple of housekeeping items. We have, may I have a motion to open public hearings?
So moved. Items 3 through
7. Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Maniscalco, a second by Councilman Goods. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next we have to remove, Mr. Shelby, what number is it we're removing? Number 4.
Number 4 is a continuance.
Okay. May I have a motion?
move to continue.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Maniscalco, a second by Councilman, thank you, I apologize. Anybody here to publicly comment on the continuance only for item number 4? Okay, being none, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Yes, sir, Mr.
If I
Shelby.
can, the date and time, that'll be the only announcement as to the continuance. That'll be the only notice as to the continuance. I'm sorry?
Is that amenable? The date?
The date was September 26th.
Okay.
Let me see. September
26 at 6 p.m.
26th at 6 p.m. And the basis for the continuance again, I'm sorry?
Ryan Manasseh, Planning and Development. The basis was they revised their site plan during the construction permitting process, so it had to be continued in order for staff to re-review the revised documents.
And it will not be renoticed, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so this is the only notice that people will be receiving, a continuance to September 26th, 2019 at 6 p.m.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. And next, I wanted to suggest something for items 6 and 7.
There was no vote on the motion, I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Crew. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It's been a long day. Thank you, as always, Jim. Okay, I wanted to, 6 and 7 are Euclidean. I wanted to especially move number 6 to our first one of Muhammad Anasi, because they are here with a very young man who is a kindergartner, and he has school tomorrow. So I wanted to move that up. Any objection from council? Okay, let's go ahead and move with number 6. Anybody here's from number 6? And let's move with all deliberate speed.
Mary Samaniego, I believe we need to be sworn in.
Oh, yes, thank you. Mr. Crew, if you could please swear everyone in. If anybody is here to give testimony or speak here tonight on these quasi-judicial matters, please stand up, raise your right hand if you're able to do so, and prepare to be sworn in.
You swear or affirm you'll tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mary Samaniego, Planning, Design, and Development Coordination. The first case, item number 6, is REZ 1951. It's a rezoning request from RM16 to RM18.
Good evening, council members. My name is Danny Collins. I'm with the Planning Commission staff. I've been sworn in. Start the evening in the South Tampa Planning District, and more specifically in the Palma Sia neighborhood. The subject site is located in proximity to transit, with a transit stop on Kennedy Boulevard, Manhattan Boulevard. The closest recreation facility is Corona Park, which is located approximately 900 yards to the west of the subject site. The subject site is in a level C evacuation zone. This is an area of the subject site and the surrounding properties. The subject site is shown in purple here on West Taken Street. This is South Ferdinand Avenue running north to south. This is Roosevelt Elementary School. This is the Selman Expressway. This is the adopted future land use map. The subject site is in a residential 20 future land use category. Residential 20 allows for low to medium density residential, including single family, detached residential units, and townhomes. You'll see here the residential 20 is shown in green. It's surrounded by residential 10, which is shown in this light tan color. And then you'll see this blue color is public, semi-public uses. Planning Commission staff has reviewed the application and found no adverse impacts to the surrounding neighborhood. The request would allow for compatible infill development within an area that is planned for development up to 20 dwelling units per acre. The request furthers many of the policies in the comprehensive plan as it relates to housing the city's population. The Tampa Comprehensive Plan encourages the development and retention of a diversity of housing types to meet the needs of Tampa's present and future populations. Based on these considerations, the Planning Commission staff finds the request consistent with the Tampa Comprehensive Plan.
Thank you very much, sir.
Mary Samaniego, Plan Design and Development Coordination. Like I said, this is a rezoning request for the property located at 3206 West Tacon Street to go from RM16 to RM18. Here is an aerial photograph as well as a zoning map. The subject property is in red. Here is Tacon Street. It dead ends into the Selman Expressway. Here is Ferdinand. In this area, there's a mix of RM16. The majority of the properties is zoned RM16 with individual houses zoned RS50 throughout this neighborhood. The entire property is 5,000 square feet. It's currently occupied by a duplex or a semi-detached single-family dwelling constructed in 1972. Under the current zoning district, RM16, this semi-detached dwelling unit is considered non-conforming because it doesn't meet the current density. If this property were to be approved for rezoning to RM18, then it would be considered a conforming density, conforming structure. The way the code reads, a non-conforming structure cannot be added onto. You can just do general maintenance and repair. So the property owners under the current zoning can only do normal maintenance on the normal maintenance and repair on this duplex. They can't expand it. In order to expand it and do significant improvements to the site, they would have to do the RM18 zoning, or they would have to convert the property into a single-family house. I will go up and down the street to show the development pattern. Interestingly, there's a mix of residential housing types on the street. To the immediate east of the subject property are two duplex buildings. Then on the other side, now we're going to the west, is a single-family house. Another large single-family house. All these pictures are taken from the street. Single-family house further to the west, going towards Ferdinand. And single-family houses, typically 2 stories. Now we're crossing the street, going back towards the subject property, a 2-story house, an older single-family house. This is 3 dwelling units. This is a single-family house. This is another single-family house directly across from the subject property. Single-family house. And then getting closer to the Selman Expressway, a duplex. And on the very corner, another duplex. There's no site plan to review. The applicant is requesting just to go to the straight RM18 zoning district. Also, there are no waivers to be requested. If this project were to be approved for the RM18, the maximum number of dwelling units that could be developed would be 2, given the 5,000 square foot size of the lot. Saying that the development review and compliance staff has reviewed the application and found this consistent with the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances. Do you have any questions for me at this time?
Any questions from council? Thank you, ma'am. Applicant, please.
Good evening. I'm Iranisi, owner of the property, and I share the property ownership with my brother, who's the applicant in here. We own
And
this.
sir, may we have your name
Yes, Amir, A-M-I-R,
and your last name?
A-N-I-S-I-N-E-C.
Oh, okay. Thank
Yes.
you, sir.
Me and my brother, both of us own the property. We own this property from 1999, last 20 years. For the record, we are not a developer, and we are not going through this process to gain any financial, financial gain out of this process. Basically, this is for personal use. Currently, my niece, she's right here with the young son, lives at one of the units. She has 3 children, and the current square footage for the unit is 500 square foot. So it's very tight unit, and we would like to enhance this property. We would like to improve this property by adding some square footage to the existing square footage. And as the staff mentioned, under the current non-conforming, we are not able to add any square footage to the existing square footage. So given that, again, our hand is tight, we respectfully request this rezoning to be approved to be able to add some square footage, enhance the property, basically add some value to the property because it's almost 50 years old. The structure is out of date, is out of code, and requires substantial improvement, bring it up to date. And in order to do that, we need some square footage. We definitely need some square footage to add because 500 is not sufficient for our use. And it's existing duplex. And again, we moved to the neighborhood 32 years ago. We value this neighborhood. We are part of this neighborhood. We truly appreciate this neighborhood. And again, we want to add value. We want to bring more value to this neighborhood by just improving this property. We are very sensitive to the neighborhood. We understand, again, our neighbors' concern. But again, throughout 32 years, again, we truly enjoy our children attending a school. Is one of the greatest neighborhood in South Tampa, but we would like to add and bring more value to this property by enhancing it and developing it and improving it. Such a condition as is, again, is very difficult, again, to keep the property up to date. Obtaining some insurance policy on the property is very difficult because require, again, substantial improvement per Florida building code, bring it up to date. So we respectfully ask for this request to be approved to be able to do the required improvement we need and expanding some square footage to the existing building.
Thank you very much. Any questions from council? I actually have a question. So you're looking at expanding the duplex?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In the surrounding neighborhood, is y'all's the only duplex there?
No, sir. To the east of the property is 2 other duplexes, and to the north, toward the expressway, is another 2 duplexes in there too. Okay. So it's a dead-end street. Pretty much, you got few duplexes. I would say four more additional duplexes behind us toward the expressway.
And those other duplexes, how do they compare in terms of the size of your duplex?
Identical size. Used to be same ownership. We purchased 3206, which we own, and the other 2 being sold to somebody else. But same size as far as the land coverage and same size of the structure.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Dingfelder.
I'm a little confused, and I apologize. I got in a few minutes late after you started.
Sure.
But you said that the purpose is to expand the existing duplex or to rebuild and put 2 new townhomes on there?
Well, our preference is to expand the square footage, okay? And is existing 500 square foot per site.
But I'm talking about, I think my question's pretty clear. Are you
Sure.
leaving the existing buildings there and expanding them, or are you tearing them down and building 2 new townhomes?
We don't have the concept plan yet. We haven't developed it yet.
So what's the necessity of going RM16 to RM18 then?
We could again.
I mean, they sound
Yes.
pretty similar, I
Sure,
guess is
sure.
my point.
Sure. I mean, we haven't assessed the option, but our preference is to add the square footage at this point. Because financially, again, you need substantial, money if you want to tear it down completely and build 2 townhomes. That require probably $300,000-$400,000.
I mean, I understand you're not going for a PD, you're going for a Euclidean rezoning RM16 to RM18, but
Sure.
I'm just still waiting to hear the necessity. If you had a specific plan, then maybe that would create more persuasive necessity, but you're saying you don't really have a specific plan.
Yeah, we consulted with the city staff. Beginning to the process, we asked them what's the best route to move forward, and that was the suggestion from the city staff to apply for rezoning from RM16 to RM18.
Thank you, sir.
Councilman Miranda?
Under the plan that he has, you can't repair and do anything modernizing these buildings, am I correct? He has a
Are you
duplex.
asking me, sir? or
Yes, yeah, I'm asking you,
Okay.
yes.
Mary Samaniego, yes, as I stated in my presentation, under the current zoning district, the two dwelling units are considered non-conforming. Per the code, you can only do general maintenance and repair. You cannot do any expansion of square footage. So they have to, the two 500 square foot dwelling units have to stay two 500 square foot dwelling units. So it's either expand to add on to the existing building or to demolish it and build two other dwelling units in whatever manner that they choose to requires a rezoning.
Councilman Dingfelder?
Okay, as a follow-on to that, under RM16, the existing zoning, I hear what you're saying, they can't change what they have because it's legal non-conforming, right?
Correct.
But if they opted to tear it down, they could build 2 units there?
No, sir. No,
Not at all, why?
because they don't meet the current density for the RM16. Each dwelling unit has to be on 2,723 square feet of land, which comes out to 5,446 square feet of land. They only have 5,000.
So
So if they were
arguably,
to tear down the existing duplex, they could only build one single-family house
or they could come in with a PD and a specific site plan for 2
as a
units.
rezone.
For 2 units?
Yes, that could have been an option,
Okay. Did you share that option with them at the
of
time?
course, yes. But they're not sure exactly which way they want to go. So if they have the RM18, that allows them to consider which option, if they want to expand the existing building now, or if they wanted, how they want to develop it at a future date.
All right, I have a better understanding. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, now we go to the public comment. If anyone is here on item number 6, please come forward. 3 minutes a person. Please state your name.
Good evening, City Council. I'm Kim DeGantz, President of the Palmacia Neighborhood Association. I'm here tonight asking that you deny the rezoning request REZ 19-51. Our streets are narrow, our roads are overcrowded, our schools are overcrowded. We do not need to increase our density within our neighborhood. It is difficult for trash trucks to get down our streets because multifamily units tend to take up more parking on the street than in a driveway. The Palmacia neighborhood has seen tremendous growth over the last couple of years. Our prior board members fought hard and worked with the city of Tampa to not allow multifamily units to be built within our neighborhood. All duplexes that are existing in our neighborhood are legally non-conforming and have been grandfathered in. Therefore, if one of these duplexes is torn down, you are not allowed to build a duplex. You have to build a single-family unit. There is nothing to say that tonight, if you grant his rezoning, he will not tear that down and put another duplex there. Therefore, we will have many more requests coming in from builders and different landowners that want to tear down a duplex and put another duplex there. I also have a letter from residents that live on the street that have signed this letter that I'll present to legal counsel that are requesting that you deny this rezoning. I'll also include a letter from the neighborhood association asking you to deny this rezoning. In closing, I respectfully request that you deny this rezoning based on competent and substantial evidence furnished and the following. Land Use Policy 9.5.8 provides to maintain the character of single-family residential areas. Land Use Policy 9.5.4 provides to maintain the current density and character of existing family areas.
Next, please. And ma'am, were you giving that to us to see?
To present it into evidence, I guess.
Okay, well, and Mr. Shelby, the nice lady there just gave a document, I guess, for us to see if we could see it for our review. Thank you, ma'am. Go ahead, sir.
Does that automatically adjust, or?
There it is.
There you go.
Okay. Good evening, I'm Robert Foss. I live at 3117 Granada Street, and I have been sworn in. Members of City Council, my wife Kim and I are requesting that you deny the petition RZ 1951 rezoning for the property at 3206 West Tacon Street. The zoning is currently RM16, together with RS 50 zoning, and is shown on the attached zoning map. It's a very consistent residential area. There are duplexes in place. They are non-conforming. They're small. Kim and I are among those long-term residents since 1985 that remember the upheaval that was going on back then. That was maybe 3 booms ago. Many of the single-family homes were being torn down to make way for new townhouses, duplexes. Surprise, here we are again in another boom period, and we're trying to keep a hold on ever-increasing traffic, parking issues, flooding, tree removal, and loss of the character of our neighborhood. The subject lot is 50 by 100, 5,000 square feet, same as most of the lots in this area. The property was grandfathered in during that comprehensive plan revision when many of our neighbors voted to downzone their property to RS50 and RM16. The intent at the time was to respect and grandfather in the rights of those duplex owners, the apartment owners, that diversity of housing that is in our neighborhood, but not to take advantage of that later. As we understood it, grandfathering allowed those owners to keep the right to keep what they had, in this case, a small duplex. You can make cosmetic improvements, landscape improvements, interior improvements within the existing square footage. You can't expand it. However, the understanding is that the comprehensive plan also protected the rest of the neighborhood. Owners who could not create further injury or plan variances when and if they wanted to change these non-conforming buildings by enlarging or tearing down and rebuilding. As currently zoned, the 50 by 100 lot will only allow a new single-family dwelling structure. RM16 intentionally does not allow 2 dwelling units on the existing 5,000 square foot. RM18 would allow those 2 units on a non-conforming lot. Surely you can see how this rezoning, there's no other RM18, would open the door to a terrible domino effect to any other developer that wanted to do this. And you've got a precedent now, and we don't have that precedent. So we are asking that there's no hardship here, there's no, this is kind of just because. We ask you to deny this rezoning.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it.
Can I turn in my letter to the?
Of course.
Thank you.
We'd love to see it. Next, please. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Sherry Parsons. I actually own the duplex next to his at 3204 Take On. I've owned it since 2001. The street is very narrow. The traffic is incredible down there. There's no parking. I have tenants in my duplex, and there is a lady on the end, down on the right, or on the left, and she has a maid service out of there. So every day, all of her maids show up, and they park along the whole street. and you can't get in and out. My lawn guy will call me and say, I can't mow the lawn today because I can't get my trailer down there, because he's not gonna be able to turn around. The tenants have a hard time even putting their trash cans out because there's no room for the trash cans and parking on the street. Literally, we have 3 spots on the duplex and 1 spot in the street, which they fight for everybody else. I have a 5-minute parking sign, but now those aren't valid anymore. So if you are to change the zoning, you are going to increase the traffic down there tremendously. It's a dead end. There's nowhere to go but to turn around, and you have to turn around in each other's driveway. It's a nightmare. So, I respectfully ask you to deny this rezoning. And I have the building right next door. Mine was revamped back in 2001 when I bought it. He could do the same thing. He could make the outside look a little nicer. I mean, right now he's got 1 tenant parking their car in the back of the duplex and 1 in the front. So you can already see parking is a problem. You want to add 2 more structures to it, you're going to add 4 more cars, or whatever he's planning to do. And I know he's planning on tearing it down, because he approached me years ago to go in with him and tear mine down and build some townhomes. And I told him I wasn't interested in doing it. So, I've owned the place since 2001, and it can't handle any more traffic down that street. It is so narrow. And your lady was there today taking photos when I was there taking my own photos. But I was told I couldn't bring them in because I didn't have a chance to print them. So I left my iPad in the car. But any questions?
This is not directly related, but you mentioned the maid service that's operating down the street. Do you know if it's on commercial property? And if not,
No, it's in a residential.
have you ever turned that over to code enforcement?
I have, and he didn't do anything about it.
I'm going to give you my card and have
Okay.
my office follow up with you, please. Or please call my office and we'll follow
I
up with
will,
you. Thank you.
because they are a huge problem. They actually park behind my tenants' cars on the street, and they can't move their car. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, ma'am?
No, I just respectfully ask that you deny this request due to the traffic, parking, and, the density of, there's not enough room to be able to create more townhomes, more cars going down there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Next, please. And Marty?
I have some people in the audience. Oh, John, does he need that?
Extend time.
Mr. Rodriguez has 5 names. Please acknowledge your presence. Robert Atkins. Thank you, sir. Kathy Law. Thank you. Rita Soraya, I believe. Not here? She had to leave. Okay. Carol Ann Bennett, please. Thank you. And Michael Fanning. Thank you. That's 4 additional minutes for a total of 7.
Hello, my name is Jack Rodriguez. I live at 3218 West San Juan Street, a couple blocks over from the subject property. We've been here before and talked about the 5,000 square foot lots and the legal non-conforming duplexes, apartment buildings in the neighborhood. There's plenty of RM16 and RS50. As you can see on the map, there's no RM18 on that map. The new zoning made all the apartments, duplexes, townhouses in the neighborhood legal non-conforming. The subject duplex was built prior to Chapter 27 and is legal non-conforming. Based on current zoning, the duplex cannot be enlarged. It can, however, be torn down and replaced with a single-family attached house. And the Planning Commission, in the times I've been down here, you know, they're working with a sort of an old plan. It hasn't really been, at least this neighborhood where we all live, has not been updated. I talked to staff about it once before. There's all the development that's in there is all new single-family detached housing. There hasn't been a duplex built in that neighborhood in over 30 years, and there hasn't been a rezoning for anything in 20 years. The request is spot zoning, which is, and you can see it here in the middle of the residential area, the process of singling out a small parcel of land for use for a use classification totally different from that of the surrounding area for the benefit of the owner of such property and to the detriment of the other owners. That's a definition that's provided in Anderson American Law of Zoning. In the development in the neighborhood, there's been over 100 new houses built in the last 5 years. And there's still about 8 or 9 under construction. All single family, all the pictures that Mary showed you of those homes, they're all through that neighborhood. I've practiced real estate for too many years, 47. The highest and best use of this property is for single-family detached housing, just like the rest of the 100. I see no economic hardship for the petitioner to request this higher density. The imposition of a financial burden on the property or its owner, in this instance, is not sufficient to approve based on economic hardship. Now, this is the most important part. You denied a rezoning 3301 San Juan back in 2016. We were here based on City Code Ordinance Section 27-156A. Council denies said petition based on the rule that if something is grandfathered in and you had a structure there on 5,000 square feet, it can remain there as long as nothing happens to it, but once something happens to it, or you want to redo it, you have to have 5,500 square feet, and that does not meet the requirement of the petition. Earlier this year, rezoning 3302 West San Juan, that council denies said petition based on its inconsistency with the development pattern of the neighborhood and clear intent of the council when it rezoned the neighborhood in 1989 to basically restrict it to single-family development. Further, under Land Use Policy 2.1.2, that limited land resources be used more efficiently and pursue a development pattern that is more economically sound. Further, that this development pattern is not more economically sound to encourage the type of infill development that is part of the development pattern in this particular neighborhood. And further, under the land use objective 9.3, the compatible development and redevelopment sustain stable neighborhoods and ensure the social and economic health of the city. And this land use designation does not meet that standard. 2 weeks ago, I was here on that same property. You all rezoned that property to RS50. The developer recognized he couldn't build the duplexes, so he came in and asked for an RS50, and y'all granted it. And that was a good zoning. And then finally, RE 124. Council denied said petition based on Land Use Policy 9.3.8, that it is the intent of the city that new residential development projects shall minimally disruptive to adjacent areas. Further, under Land Use Policy 9.3.5, the location of single-family attached units shall be limited to the periphery of the established single-family detached neighborhood. This is in the middle of the neighborhood, not on the periphery. The rezoning hearing is a quasi-judicial hearing, and to approve the petition, you must find competent and substantial evidence. I submit to you the current petition should be denied based on all of the above competent and substantial evidence provided herein. You all have spoken in the past, and it's your job to follow through on what's right for the city and this neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Carlos.
A question for legal. He brought up the issue of grandfathering, and that if something is grandfathered, that it can't be changed after that. Can you get? Sorry, I'm the newbie question, but is there some legal? Is that competent, substantial information or evidence, and is there any legal opinion regarding that?
So, grandfathering is it's a term that we struggle with as land use lawyers because it's often thrown around. It's not actually the right terminology for this particular instance. The discussion that you heard earlier from Ms. Samaniego regarding the nonconformity status, that is how we handle, what would be considered grandfathering under our zoning code. So the zoning code provides that if something existed before the rules went into place, then we don't enforce those new rules against them unless and until they make major renovations or they make some sort of major change to what they're doing with the property, or they cease that nonconformity and then they can't get it back. So the non-conforming structure in our code is how we handle those types of situations. So I would say for your purposes, for your consideration tonight, it is competent and substantial evidence how the existing non-conforming use interacts with our code, and the intent in our code to eventually have non-conforming uses go away. So that's all relevant for your consideration tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Councilman Goods.
I just had a question for the petitioner.
And let's wait until after public comment, whenever he does his.
Yeah, I think I'm the last one. My name is Alan Dobbs, 5502 North Cherokee Avenue. I have been sworn. I listened to the family when they came up and explained the reason for the wanting this rezoning. I feel very sympathetic towards them and their needs, but I also understand everybody that has spoke against this, that the more intense zoning is not necessarily appropriate for this. I wanted to get up and speak not necessarily for or against it, but to maybe propose an alternative for this family. If their need is to provide an additional dwelling unit for a family member, there is an alternative for an extended family residence, I think, which is a special use, at least in an RS50 zoning district. I'm not sure if it's allowed in a RM16. I understand it has to be owner-occupied property. It has to be a member of the family. So I'm not sure if this is homestead property and it's owned by one of the brothers and they occupy it, but it's definitely an alternative for them. So I just wanted to get up here and recommend that. A PD is obviously an alternative as well, but that's very expensive and involved and takes a lot of time. I know the Land Development Office spends a lot of time and resources on those. The gentleman before, spoke about, what's right for the city, but I think we also need to consider what's right for the family. So I think if this is a feasible alternative to an extended family residence, that would be an alternative that they could do, I assume, with the existing zoning, assuming it's homestead property. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilman Goods, you had a question for the petitioner?
Yes. I want to get a clear understanding of what you're trying to do with the project. I never got the gist of what do you really want to do.
We want to add to a square footage to the existing structure. As the staff explained, the minute we touch this, we don't have under RM16 the sufficient square footage to put the duplex back in place. The minute we touch it, we are allowed to tear it down, and replace it with a single family home. We've been paying taxes past 20 years based on the duplex, based on the multi-unit, okay? The property appraiser tax collector assessed the property based on 2 units. Now, we've been grandfathered in because the zoning has changed throughout the years. Basically, they're asking us to give us what we have and reduce it down to less than what we have. You know, the neighbors, they're asking us to tear it down and build like one single dwelling unit. For past 50 years, I mean, this has been duplex since 1971, they built it. Has been conforming, but the code has changed, the zoning has changed, the city changed it, okay? Mid-'80s, early '80s. But again, it still is RM16, it still is 2 units.
But again, I'm asking you, what do you want to put there, sir? What are you trying to put
We want to
there?
keep a duplex, we want to add the square footage. Because the existing square footage is not sufficient for 5 people to live on 500 square feet.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Councilman Carlson.
Just a question for legal. Is there a, sorry to make you jump up again. Is there a, stop me if I shouldn't ask this question, but is there a third alternative here? I think it sounds like the concern of the community is that this would be converted into a new duplex and that the duplex rights would somehow break through if this went through. Is there some other way to resolve the neighbors' concerns?
Not through this rezoning. We can't place conditions on Euclidean rezoning, so the route that they have chosen to do a Euclidean rezoning would not be an avenue to place those limitations upon it. And just as a quick reminder, because there's been a lot of debate about what the appropriate standards are for you, I know you heard a lot of information from everyone tonight. The standard for rezonings is the applicant bears the burden of proof to show that what they are asking for is consistent with the comprehensive plan. If they meet that burden, then they are entitled to the rezoning unless there is other competent and substantial evidence in the record to show that they are not consistent. Okay?
Thank you. Councilman Citro, then Councilman Dingfelder.
Mr. Chair, Ms. Mora just answered my questions.
Okay. Councilman Dingfelder.
Thank you. Two things. One, I want to point everybody to the Planning Commission report on page 3. This is the one that has green on it. Very pretty. Halfway through, it says the applicant's proposing yada 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 RM18 to allow for the development of 2 townhomes. That goes on to speak to 2 townhomes elsewhere in that paragraph. And then the applicant says, no, I just want to expand the existing duplex. So there's a little bit of conflict there, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because he's not doing a PD. He's asking for a change in the Euclidean zoning from RM16 to RM18. So in my opinion, my humble opinion, what we have to do is evaluate sort of the maximum development potential that he could do, regardless of what he says he's going to do here today, regardless of what the Planning Commission says he's going to do, regardless of what the neighbor who testified says he's going to do. It doesn't matter because once the Euclidean's granted, he can max out and do whatever that RM18 allows. So I just wanted to clarify that, and then we'll hear the rest of this and get moving on it.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. And did the petitioner do rebuttal? Okay. Rebuttal, petitioner.
As I said, this is a hardship request based on the family, issue we have.
And I'm sorry, state your name again, please.
Amir Anisi, A-M-I-R, first
Thank
name, last name A-N-I-S-I. As I stated earlier, this is a hardship request, and currently we have a duplex, and we own this property for the last 20 years. We've been in neighborhood for the last 32 years. We value our neighborhood. We are not planning to move out of the neighborhood anytime soon. And again, we would like to enhance, we would like to improve this property, again, to make the best use out of it. Under the current condition, we have a limited use as far as the square footage. And as I said, the building is not up to date, doesn't meet the Florida Building Code standard, okay, and it's hard to obtain, policy on the building, needs substantial improvement. And again, this is just the request for the personal use. Again, we don't want to get any financial gain out of this. We don't want to develop 2 townhomes. We talked to the staff, and this is the staff recommendation to go through this route. And again, for confidence of the council, if you want us to go through the PD route, we'd be happy again to change the application, come back in here. So we consulted with the staff. They said, change it from RM16 to RM18 zoning. That would allow you to basically keep your current status, not go less than what you have. And as I said, we've been paying property tax for the last 20 years on this property based on the duplex, based on the multi-units. And neighbors are complaining about the traffic is a dead-end street. You got 4 or 5 more other duplexes in the street. And if somebody's running business off of residential property, again, I don't know how we are, responsible for that. It's a code enforcement issue, it's a city issue they have to deal with, running, businesses out of the property. And again, currently it's a 2-unit. You may have 2 cars per unit. So we are not asking for more dense than what it is. Okay, regardless. I mean, if this not get granted tonight, you are going to have a duplex, in there. You are going to have the amount of car or the number of the car you will have in there. So we are not asking again for higher than what we have. We are not impacting the residents. We are asking for modification. We are asking for upgrading what we have, because under the current non-conforming, we can't do anything about this property. And we have, I guess, as an owner, we have, I think, ownership, some rights. This is respectfully a request on the hardship cases. Thank you.
Anything for council?
Yes.
Can I just ask legal a question to clarify something he just said? If I heard him right, he said that if he came back as a PD, he would have to wait a year. Is that true? And is it true if it fails tonight? And is it true if he withdraws his request tonight?
So there are a few different options. He could modify his request, in which case he would have to go back, renotice, and change that request, go through DRC, do all the things he would need to do. So that's an option, that's an avenue, and that would get him back here in 3 months, probably, something along those lines. If he's denied tonight, then there's no, okay. He would just need to restart a new PD application. And so that would have to go through that process of, a few months, but
Okay.
no, it wouldn't be a year.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay. May I have a motion to close if there's any?
Second.
We have a motion to close by Councilman Miranda, a second by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? What is the pleasure of Tampa City Council? Yes, sir.
I'll start a motion, and then if you all agree, you can add to it. I would, number 6. I would move that we deny REZ 1951 due to the failure of the petitioner to meet its burden of proof to provide competent, substantial evidence in the record that the rezoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan and the city code, and specifically that it's inconsistent with the surrounding neighborhood and some of the other evidence we were presented that I can't remember right this minute.
Sir.
If there are any other findings of fact that council recognizes that are relevant to the case, I'd ask that you put it into the record as well.
I feel a friendly amendment coming on by Councilman Felder.
I'll support the motion based upon the competent substantial evidence that I heard as related to school traffic and regular traffic and parking issues on a very narrow street, and the neighbors who've lived there many years in the immediate vicinity have all testified to those problems already without increasing the density. In addition, I will note in regard to precedent, that in 2006 when I was here, the last time this was a big problem throughout that part of Palmacia and then across the other side of Bay to Bay. And that's why the neighborhood chose to do an area-wide rezoning, as Jack pointed out, and specifically to prevent multifamily townhomes quads, there were also triplexes, quads, big ones being built up and down these very, very narrow, small streets. And that's not the character of the neighborhood. I'll make reference to inconsistency with chapter 27-156A, as well as land use policies 2.1.2 and 9.5.8 and 9.5.4. Thank you, Mr. Cross.
Okay, and are you seconding that, sir?
I thought somebody else seconded it, but I'll be glad to second it with those comments.
Okay, we have a motion by and anybody else? Motion by Councilman Carlson, a second by Councilman Dingfelder.
Oh, one other thing before you vote.
Yes, sir.
He mentioned hardship, and our legal counsel has never indicated that hardship is a factor. It might be an emotional factor for us, but our legal counsel would say that hardship might be an issue on variances. This isn't a variance, this is a rezoning, so hardship's not relevant.
Okay, we have the motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay. I guess
The
roll
the
call?
motion carried with Goods and Miranda voting no.
The what? Sorry. It was Citra. Joseph.
Correction, the motion carried with Goods and Citro voting no.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next we move back to, and now for item number 7, is there staff here that this is their last and only item left? Okay, let's do number 7 as a courtesy to our friends in the Planning Commission. 7, and then we go to 3, 5, 6.
Mary Samaniego Land Development, Planning, Design, and Development Coordination, REZ 1952. It's a rezoning request for the property located at 1502 and 1508 East 17th Avenue from RS 50 to CG.
Danny Collins with the Planning Commission staff have been sworn in. For this case, we're moving to the Central Tampa Planning District. The subject site is within the East Tampa Urban Village. The closest transit stop is adjacent to the subject site on East 17th Avenue. The closest recreation facility is on Cascaden Park, which is located 1 block to the northwest of the subject site. The subject site is not in an evacuation zone. This is an area of the subject site. The subject site is located here. It's outlined in purple. This is East Columbus Drive. This is North 15th Street. This is Cascaden Park. And then you'll see a mix of or single-family residential homes to the northeast of the subject site. This is the adopted future land use map. The subject site is classified commercial mixed use 35 and is showed in the light pink color. It's kind of in the center, and then if you kind of go out, you'll see the CMU 35. This green color is the residential 10 or the residential 20, and then this light tan color is the residential 10, and then this light blue color is public, semi-public. Yep. Planning Commission staff has reviewed the applicant's request and found the proposed zoning comparable and compatible to the existing uses in the area. The site is surrounded by a mix of light commercial and light industrial uses. A mix of single-family and multifamily residential exists to the east and northeast of the subject site. The request would facilitate redevelopment of an underutilized and vacant lot in the East Tampa Urban Village and would not adversely impact existing residences. Based on those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the request consistent with the Tampa Comprehensive Plan.
Any questions from council?
Mary Samaniego, Planning, Design, and Development Coordination. Again, this property is currently zoned RS 50, and the request, and you go to commercial general. Danny just indicated it's in a community commercial 35 land use category, which is promoting increasing development to the commercial general level. It's currently a vacant piece of property. It is bound to the north by commercial general, to the south by commercial general, and across the street we start going into the Ybor City zoning district. Here's kind of some of the surrounding development. This is directly across the street of 15th to the west. This is to the north, the cigar factory that's currently starting redevelopment. This is directly to the east. There are commercial properties that finish out the block, 2 single-family houses, and again, the eastern side of the historic cigar factory. Across 17th is a commercial use as well as a large wholesale market across 17th. This is a Euclidean rezoning, so any allowable use within the CG would be able to be developed pending late approval of all zoning requirements for development consideration. The overall property is 0.64 acres. Like I said, it's right across the street from the Ybor district. However, this is not within the Ybor Historic District. There were no specific comments from staff, so overall the development and compliance staff found this consistent with the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances. Do you have any specific questions for me at this time?
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Applicant?
Good evening. My name is Alan Dobbs with Florida Design Studio, 5502 North Cherokee Avenue. I have been sworn. How much time do I have for the presentation? I'm sort of kidding because this is going to be very quick. I just have one very short statement. The purpose of this rezoning is to allow redevelopment of an underutilized property, but also allow adjacent properties to the north which are underutilized, one of which includes the Perfecto Garcia Cigar Factory. This property, the Perfecto Cigar Factory, and some other adjacent properties are all owned by the same owner, and we're working on a redevelopment plan for basically that entire area, and that's the reason that we're requesting for this rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Okay, thank you very much. Is anybody here from the public to comment on item number 7? If so, please come forward. You may speak 3 minutes at a time. May I have a, okay, motion to close. We have a second by Councilman Goods. All in favor? Any opposed? Councilman Dingfelder, do you mind, sir, taking item number 7? Or, I'm sorry, did you have a question, Councilman Goods?
Go ahead.
I'll get through.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, orders being presented for first reading consideration of orders rezoning property in German City of 1502 and 1508 17th Avenue in the city of Tampa, Florida, and more particularly described in section 1 from zoning district classification RS50 residential single family to CG commercial general, proven effective date.
Second. We have a motion by Councilman Goods. Oh, and yes, in the magic language on.
Okay, move the ordinance that the petitioner has met the burden of proof, provide competent and substantial evidence that the rezoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan, particularly that of the planning commission and of the city planning department.
Second. Thank you, sir. We have a motion by Councilman Goods, a second by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
The motion carried unanimously. Second reading and adoption will be on September 19th at 9:30 a.m.
Thank you very much. Now we go to number 3.
Good evening, Council. Ryan Manassi, Planning, Design, and Development Coordination. Item number 3 is application AB 21917, located at 17004 Palm Point Drive. The applicant is Mark Bentley. The current zoning on the site is PDA with a future land use of CC 35. The Development Review and Compliance staff has reviewed the application and finds it inconsistent with applicable City of Tampa planning and development regulations. Should you approve it tonight, minor corrections to the site plan would be needed before second reading. The property currently has an approved alcohol beverage sales ordinance 2009-67, file V0957, for a small venue beer and wine consumption on premises and in sealed containers for consumption off premises. The existing AB sales area has a total of 4,309 square feet with 2,371 square feet indoor and 1,930 square feet outdoor. Also, the existing AB sales ordinance hours of operation are consistent with Chapter 14. This petition that is before you tonight is requesting a special use approval to allow the sale of alcoholic beverages for a restaurant, beer, wine, and liquor consumption on premises only. The total AB sales area for the proposed petition is 4,384 square feet, which contains 2,222 square feet indoor area first floor, 530 square feet indoor area second floor, and 1,632 square feet outdoor. The proposed use on the property is a restaurant, and this petition was not considered a change of use, and the parking requirement for the entire strip center is 107 spaces, which was previously approved through ordinance 2018-51, file AB2 1724. The property is along a mixed-use corridor village, and the distance separation requirement is 250 feet from residential uses and 250 feet from other alcohol selling establishments. The site plan states the sales area shall not be located in a parking loading area or space, and that all permits issued after April 1st, 2011 shall be kept on site, a copy of the adopted ordinance and associated site plan for the alcohol beverage sales permit. The hours of operation for this petition are listed on the site plan as consistent with Chapter 14 as may be amended. General requirements of code and staff findings found that Planning, Design, and Development Coordination did find it inconsistent, and that's due to the reduction in the required distance separation from other AB sales establishments. Again, minor corrections to the site plan would be needed. The minor correction, and I'll show you on a graphic, is the AB sales area on the site and floor plan need to accurately reflect the AB sales area on the sketch that was certified. The waiver comes from section 27-132, and that's to reduce the required distance separation from other AB sales establishments from 250 feet to 0 feet. Along mixed-use corridor villages, again, the 250 feet for residential uses and 250 feet for alcohol AB sales establishments is required. There were no residential uses within that area, and the alcohol establishment that did trigger this waiver comes from 17012 Palm Point Drive, which is the same strip center. It's zoned PDA. It's the Koizao Endless Hibachi and Sushi Eatery. They hold a 4 COP, and the way it's measured is it'd be at 0 feet because it's on the same property. General planning and transit findings found the property is located in a mixed-use corridor village, and code criteria for city council reference and consideration come from section 2743. That's the definitions where it defines the beer, wine, liquor consumption on premise only, as well as the restaurant use. Other areas for council to consider is section 27-129, the general standards, and section 27-132, regulations governing individual special uses. The map shows the zoning on the property as well as an aerial view. And what I did, this is just a vicinity map. This is not by scale, and the AB sketch is what actually locks in the alcohol beverage sales area. But just for you to identify the area in the strip center, I kind of highlighted here with my red pen. The overall property is the red dashed boundary. And as you can see around the property, it's all PDA, including across the street. Top photo shows the front of the establishment. It's the Chichios. This is the outdoor area that is right next to, well, it's connected to the indoor area. Top photo shows the rear view of the outside area. You see the fence go around it and then the table set up. This is the picture behind the strip center. Something a little different from the previous alcohol was this cooler is included in this AV sketch. That's why some of the AV square footages might be a little bit different from the existing AV sales ordinance. This top picture would be the entrance on Palm Avenue, and then once you're in Palm Avenue, the entrance to the establishment. This would be Koizao. This is the other alcohol establishment that's directly in the same strip center. Bottom photo is southeast Tampa Palms Boulevard, and then there's south across Tampa Palms Boulevard. The site plan that was submitted with the staff report and for staff to review was there, and you provided hard copies. The corrections between first and second reading that I stated was to the alcohol sales area that's shown graphically on the site plan. I highlighted the AV sketch from the application packet. I would just like it to more accurately reflect the AV sketch. And also TPD had no objections to this request. Staff is available for any questions that you may have.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Councilman Goods.
When I look at the TPD criminal intelligence report, the 37 calls, is that for the whole plaza, or is this for the specific location?
So the way it works with TPD calls for service, and it's not inaccurate, but what happens is, I'm trying to find that aerial photo for you. If anything is happening outside on that road, TPD has to mark it as that address. So you'll find this in a lot of establishments that may be on a busy road. If someone got pulled over there, they're gonna start a report for that address. Necessarily not for this specific address. The TPD officer, I believe, that investigates this, he would have shown if there was actually anyone.
I know how it works. I just want to be clear
Oh, okay.
what it was. But I know
Yes.
how it works.
Yes, Councilman.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Mr. Shelby, I have a question for you. I just want to do this out of an abundance of caution. How can I put this? There is property in Tampa Palms that my name is on the mortgage. It's about 1.5 miles away. That does not preclude me from voting on this, correct?
1.5 miles is quite a distance. There's a lot of people between you and them, and you have no financial, I'm sorry, you have no financial interest in this petition one way or the other.
Zero.
Thank you, sir.
Out of an abundance of OCD caution.
Well,
Thank
then,
you.
upon my professional opinion, under Florida statutes, you're obligated to vote.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of council. My name is Mark Bentley, 401 East Jackson Street, Tampa, 33602, and I have been sworn. I represent the Chichio Restaurant Group in connection with some modifications to their existing wet zoning in the shopping center out in Tampa Palms. They've been there approximately 9 years at this point in time. They have a 2 COP, allows package sales, beer and wine. There have been no incidents related to the establishment that we're aware of in the 9 years. And Councilman Goods, that issue about the address is, and I know you're a policeman, but what the police do is they tag any incident to the closest address, whether it's open or not. So that's the way that works. So they have this new restaurant concept, and recently council approved one on Dale Mabry, next across the street from LA Fitness. It's this Cali restaurant. So the modifications being sought here tonight are in connection with this new concept by Chichio. And specifically, the changes are as follows. From a small venue to a restaurant, and by definition, under the city code, a restaurant is the principal use of the property is the preparation and sale of food, and there's a reporting requirement, an annual reporting requirement in terms of your percentages. They're increasing the indoor area 530 square feet to add a second floor. They're decreasing the outdoor area by 300 square feet. They're adding liquor as a component. They're eliminating the ability to have package sales, and they'll maintain the same hours of operation that they have, which are pursuant to Chapter 14. And also point out to council, there are 3 other restaurants in the center, and all of them are 4 COP, and all of them, their hours of operation are pursuant to Chapter 14. The waiver from the other ABs, as Ryan indicated in the staff report, we need a waiver because the way the city applies its wet zoning code, the interpretation is that even if it's in the same shopping center, it could be 800 feet away and exceed the separation requirement, is that if it's on the same folio or parcel, the city considers it to be 0. So the sushi place that's 0 could have been 500 feet away, but that's just the way the city interprets it. In any event, the sushi is 4 COP, hours of operations are pursuant to Chapter 14. So that pretty much covers it unless you have any questions. So they've established a good track record out there for 9 years, and they just want to tweak this to be consistent with the new concept.
Any questions from council? And I'll just speak. This in no way informs or defines my vote. I've obviously been to that restaurant a number of times. I live over in Hunter's Green, and they're always good folks over there who are good community partners on a lot of issues, and generally are very responsible people, from my own personal opinion that has no basis on my vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody here from the public here to comment on item number 3? We have a motion to close from Councilman Miranda, a second from Councilman Goods. All in favor? Any opposed? Councilman Maniscalco, I believe, would you like to take this item, sir?
Yes, sir. Mr. Shelby, on these, on this sheet here for alcoholic beverage,
Yes, I'm going to refer you to the staff report, section 27-129, the general standards. If it complies with that, if you want to make any findings with regard to that, that would be the place to do it.
okay, well, then
And
I will,
also, I believe there's a revisions required as part of the motion, is that correct, between first and second reading?
Ryan Manassi, Planning, Design, and Development Coordination. That is correct. It's listed in the staff report and visually depicted for the applicant to make those minor modifications to the graphics on the site plan to match the AB sketch.
So that would be fine.
okay, thank you very much. So, I have an ordinance being presented for first reading, consideration, and ordinance approving a special use permit S2 for alcoholic beverage sales, restaurant consumption on premises only, and making lawful the sale of beverages regardless of alcoholic content, beer, wine, and liquor on that certain lot, plot, or tract of land located at 17004 Palm Point Drive, Tampa, Florida, as more particularly described in section 3, providing that all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict are repealed, repealing ordinance number 2009-67, providing an effective date, and including the revision sheet. And I see, going by the staff report, I find it consistent using section 27-129 general standards. It's compatible with contiguous and surrounding property as a public necessity. I find it in conformity with the Tampa Comprehensive Plan. And that's it.
Do we have a second? We have a motion by Councilman Maniscalco, a second by Councilman Miranda. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
The motion carried unanimously. Second reading and adoption will be on September 19th at 9:30 a.m.
Thank you.
Thank you very
sir.
much. Have a good night. Take care.
And I again want to thank everyone for your patience as we come to the final countdown.
Ryan Manassi, Planning, Design, and Development Coordination. Item number 5 is the application AB 21919, located at 5244 and 5246 North Florida Avenue. The applicant is the agent for the application is David B. Singer, and the current zoning on the property is SHCG and SHCI. The future land use is CC 35. The Development Review and Compliance staff has reviewed the application and finds it inconsistent with applicable City of Tampa planning and development regulations. Minor corrections to the site plan are needed between first and second reading should you approve this petition tonight. The petition before you is requesting a special use approval to allow the sale of alcoholic beverages for a small venue, beer, wine, and liquor, package sales, off-premises consumption only. The petition is not considered a change of use, and the use is retail sales established under building permit BLD 17-0451382. The required parking for all the uses is 110 spaces. The total AB sales area is 3,642 square feet, first floor indoor only, which is further broken down by alcoholic beverage AB classification as 555 square feet for a 3PS, which is beer, wine, and liquor package sales, and at 5244 North Florida, and 3,087 square feet for a 2APS beer, wine package sales at 5246 North Florida Avenue. The property is within the Seminole Heights Urban Village, and the distance separation requirement is 250 feet from other AB sales establishments. The site plan states the hours of operation will be consistent with Chapter 14, and the sales area shall not be located within a parking loading area or space. Also, the site plan states all permits issued after April 1st, 2011 shall be kept on site. A copy of the adopted ordinance and associated site plan for the alcoholic beverage sales permit. General requirements of code and staff findings found it inconsistent due to the distance separation requirement, and it's the reduction in the required distance separation to other AB sales establishments. That waiver comes from section 27-132, and it reads as to reduce the required distance separation to other AB sales establishments from 250 feet to 85 feet. The closest AB sales establishment is the Red Star Rock Bar at 5210 North Florida Avenue. It's zone SHCI and SHCG. It holds a 4 COP, and it's at the 85 feet. General planning and transit findings found that Hart Route 1 typically runs weekdays from 4:05 a.m. to 12:43 a.m. and weekends from 6 a.m. to 10:48 p.m. Again, the property is located in the Seminole Heights Urban Village. Code criteria for city council reference and consideration come from section 2743, and that's the definitions. I've included the definitions for a small venue, which is a commercial establishment with less than 299 person occupancy, which sells alcoholic beverages only. And then also the definition for retail sales and the AB classification. Again, this is for package sales only in this petition. Other code sections for council to consider come from section 27-129 general standards and section 27-132 regulations governing individual special uses. Here's the aerial and zoning map. As you can see, the entire parcel again is outlined in red, and I try to visually depict the cutouts for these type of strip centers. Again, the AB sketch is what's going to hold the alcohol to the property area. As you can see, the zoning is SHCG, as I said, and SHCI to the south, including the property and the petition in front of you tonight. The top photo is the subject site at the front. That's facing more of a northwest, and that's the bottom picture is facing southwest. This top picture is North Florida Avenue and also south on Florida Avenue. The subject site parking garage, and then I took a picture just of the entrance of the parking garage to give you an idea where the parking would be taking place. This is generally the location of the front of the structure. The retail component's on the first floor. This is a mixed-use development. This is the rear inside of the parking garage. And then across directly across the street, Florida Avenue. Top picture shows the closest alcohol sales establishment, the Red Star Rock Bar, to the property. And this is north across Giddens Avenue. The site plan was submitted and you have a hard copy in front of you, as well as I've provided a graphic depiction of some minor corrections to the site plan that I would require between first and second reading should you approve this petition. TPD found no objections to this request, and staff is available for any questions that you may have.
Do we have any questions? No? All right, thank you very much. Petitioner, please.
Good evening, Council. David Singer for the applicant, along with my colleague Matt Newton. We're at 101 East Kennedy Boulevard here in Tampa. I know it's been a long day. I will try and keep this brief. I am here to answer your questions at the end. As staff indicated, while we're here to permit the AB use, this is also about bringing a grocery store to a commercial intensive corridor in Seminole Heights. Let me tell you a little about the applicant, who is Duckweed Urban Grocery. Duckweed is a Tampa-based grocery store that is committed to carrying locally sourced fresh produce and other local products, from locally created desserts to local craft beer and distilled spirits. As one of downtown Tampa's most accessible grocery stores, it is currently in the Element building, and that was their first location. They have expanded with another location in Channelside. Soon they're looking to add a location at the new West Shore Marina District, with your approval, in Seminole Heights. With this application, Duckweed is requesting to open a 3,642 square foot grocery store, only 555 square feet of which will be utilized for a liquor component. This is an overhead map of the corridor. You're looking at Florida Avenue running north and south. The location is just south of this intersection at Hillsborough and across from the Ichikoro Ramen restaurant. You can see its location noted by the duck icon right in the middle. This is primarily a commercial corridor with residential uses situated a block behind a number of growing and successful commercial uses. Here you can see the location is within the CC 35 stretch of the future land use map, noted in the red color. This is an intense future land use category in our comp plan that allows for intensive and general commercial uses. On the zoning map, you can see this is squarely within the Seminole Heights Commercial Intensive District, the most dense commercial designation in this part of the city. This corridor is in a commercial district noted for its many new culinary contributions to the city. And the community, along with city staff, has been making strides to make this a more walkable and connected corridor. This application furthers that objective. This is a side view of what the building looks like today. As staff pointed out, the only waiver the applicant is requesting is to operate duckweed in relative close proximity to another AB use. That use is the Red Star Rock Bar, which is actually one of the smallest bars in the city of Tampa. According to the property appraiser, that use contains only 1,300 square feet of heated area. And for comparison's sake, for those of you that are familiar with Tiny Tap in South Tampa, that's only 90 square feet smaller. Keep in mind, this liquor component at Duckweed is only 555 square feet. Why am I telling you this? Why is that important? The proximity of Duckweed to this existing use is not going to lead to an unintended consequence of creating a nightclub district. That was the original purpose of the distance separation in the code, is so you don't create a corridor where you can have extensive nightclubs. We are avoiding that. I want to also point out what this application is not asking for. It's not asking for a parking waiver. It's not asking for a setback waiver. It's not asking for a landscape or a green space waiver. Zooming out, you can see here that few grocery options exist in this area. There is a need for grocery use in the growing Seminole Heights community. Also, it's smart planning. Integrating ground-level grocery store uses in small-scale, vertical mixed-use developments is precisely what urban planners envisioned for the successful future of walkable communities. On this slide, I highlighted excerpts from a peer-reviewed article in the Journal of Urbanism that is titled Beyond Bodegas, Affordable Groceries Through an Innovative Store Format. The article advocates the utilization of small-scale, vertically integrated mixed-use developments with ground floor grocery uses because they contribute to the neighborhood character, to food security, and economic stability. Grocery stores in their neighborhoods have a positive and a symbiotic relationship. These grocery stores strengthen neighborhoods. The fact that liquor is included with this grocery store's inventory shouldn't muddy the waters here. There is no reason the neighborhood should be able to walk a few steps for fresh produce, but have to drive, bike, get on a bus, or take a scooter if they want to purchase liquor. We can't celebrate the use on one hand and disrupt its business model, which is consistent with both the future land use and the zoning, on the other hand. I want to touch on a few features of this building itself, which has already been approved and constructed, and people are already moving in. There is robust buffering and screening between the building and its neighbors to the west. A 10-foot landscape buffer and a 13-foot setback separate these uses. And note that the code requires no setback. Here's a photograph of the existing screening, which is only going to grow over time. The building has a vehicular access from both Giddens and Florida. The grocery component can be accessed from the rear and the side of the building, and the liquor component can only be accessed from Florida Avenue. Duckweed has been actively communicating with the Neighborhood Association, as shown here with a post from the South Seminole Heights Civic Association's Facebook page. Comments from the community have been largely positive. There's a good buzz, a good vibe in the community about the addition of Duckweed to Seminole Heights. In conclusion, this is good planning. This is consistent with Chapter 27, Section 129. It's consistent with the comprehensive plan. It's consistent with the zoning. There is a need for grocery in the growing community of Seminole Heights. We respectfully request your approval, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Mr. Singer, can you please put that letter back up from, was it South Seminole Heights?
That was a Facebook post from the South Seminole Heights
And it says,
Neighborhood Association. This is our client Duckweed communicating with the residents, and you can see the South Seminole Heights Civic Association posted it for all their members.
Okay, this is from the owner of Duckweed. Okay, I thought it was a position taken by the South Seminole Heights.
No, sir. This is just communication, evidence of communication between the
Okay.
communities.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Councilman Good.
Well, just a couple of questions. When we say there are no grocery stores, there's a Save-A-Lot to the west, there's a Walmart to the east. You have another grocer, Dollar Tree. So I guess my concern is I'm looking at this new development, and it's going to have a package store in it. So when I think about alcohol, I look at the area, and you have Southeast Seminole Heights, South Seminole Heights, the river, and have we considered the traffic flow? Because now we're looking at a package store there.
Yes, sir.
And that's my concern with an alcoholic club with a close distance to a package store, and knowing that area has its challenges, and it's starting to pick up. But my concern is a package store being so close to Southeast Seminole Heights and some of the challenges we have, and the traffic flow, and maybe the people who are not living in that particular building per se. If you know where I'm going with this, how are the owners or the this particular building owners are going to be accepted to these outside people? This is going to be just for these folks in this nice new loft building, because what I can eventually see, a close liquor store, because the closest liquor store in that area will be the ABC liquor store to the east. So I'm just wondering the traffic flow and how that's going to work with that building there, because I'm looking at the area.
It's Duckweed's contention, and I hope this answers your question. It's Duckweed's contention there's room in the market for an additional player. We would suggest that in this particular area, and if you look at this slide that is up there now, which I think is the one you're referring to, I mean, it's several blocks away, if not more, from both the Save-A-Lot, from Gita's. You have an entire neighborhood in proximity here with no walkable access to a grocery store. Again, in a very commercially intensive future land use pattern and zoning district. So if the question is, is there a market for it? I believe the answer is yes, and Duckweed would like the opportunity to show that.
I want to be tactful with my wording. I think you know where I want to go, but I'm trying to, I want to make sure that if this was approved, that everybody in that vicinity is going to be able to be a part of Duckweed. If you know where I'm going, sir.
Let me say this. Part of the reason I put up the communication between the neighborhood association and its residents and Duckweed's communication with the neighborhood was there were several pretty significant concerns that the neighborhood association had expressed. One of them was that there was going to be a walk-up window to this establishment. That is certainly not the case. One of them was about access, and are you going to be able to enter and leave and potentially loiter on a side street near a neighborhood? And again, I will point to the only access to this is on Florida Avenue, and you can't park right in front of it and run in and run out. That's not how this development is set up. And part of the benefit and challenge that our state has imposed on us is the whiskey and Wheaties provision in state law, which says you can't have liquor sales and food sales under the same roof, and so they have to be separately walled. That's why you don't see Publix selling liquor. They have to have that separate liquor store next door. That applies to Duckweed as well. If this could all be under one roof, certainly that would be
and again, the reason I said it because I have a lot of challenges with a lot of small motels and
yes, sir.
And you know what, those small motels on Hillsborough, Florida Avenue, and Nebraska. Now we have a small package store right there, because Publix doesn't have a package store, the one on Nebraska.
That's right.
So that's why I'm just looking at my mind, is it gonna bring on a crime type atmosphere? And that's my concern right now. I think it's great that Duckweed wants to come into the community, be wrong, but I just wanna kind of clear my mind on how that's gonna operate, or how this will operate, because I just know that community, and I just know alcohol in that community, and that's just my concern. So I need you to kind of give me some assurance on how Duckweed will kind of handle some things, because that's my major concern, knowing the type of environment and the potential that it could get to a level that we don't want it to get at.
I hear your concern, and I understand, I believe where we're headed here. I would say a couple things. One, we can't look at this as just today. We have to look at this several years out. Duckweed intends to be a part of the community for many years to come. Is that particular corridor, again, commercially intensive corridor, going to remain the same type of character that it is today? And I will say to you definitively, the answer is no. And the reason I know that is because Duckweed wants to come here. That should be sufficient evidence to show that the changing character of this corridor. Second, I would point you to Section 14, Part 150.1.6 of our Land Development Code. Consumption of alcoholic beverages on premises within 500 feet of property zoned for off-premises consumption is prohibited and punishable by prison time. I think it's fair to say that we're going to ask our fine officers to enforce the law. And Duckweed expects people to comply with the law. It's already on the books. There's protection there.
Thank you, Mr. Singer. Anything further? Yes, sir.
May I, Ms. Mora? Is this, if granted, and Duckweed decides 2-3 years down the line that it wants to go with the development of this area, does this alcohol sales stay with the property, and could perhaps Duckweed turn it into a restaurant bar?
The approval is, so it is not personal to them, it runs with the land, and it is permanent with the land. It is for package sales, off-premise consumption only, so they could only sell, they would not be able to consume.
Thank you, Ms. Moore.
Ryan Manassi, Planning, Design, and Development Coordination. I just wanted to add that the uses are established through that building permit, and it was for office, retail, and then the residential living. So in order for them to add something like a restaurant, they'd have to go through a change of use and go through permitting process as well, just for council's knowledge.
Just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And I have a question, if I may, for Mr. Singer. Duckweed, I've been there one time, one at the Element, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How much of their sales or the items that they have there are alcohol? Is it a majority alcohol, minority?
No, it is a significant minority.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, this is more a grocery store that has an alcohol component.
Yeah. I mean, Duckweed, my impression when I was there, it's a fine store, but it's more like a place where you can get like, I don't know, a vegan organic granola grass shake. You know what I mean? Good.
I don't know what you mean, but that sounds, interesting.
It's a healthy stuff, I guess. So, or so it appeared to me.
It's more of a bodega that you'd see in a larger
There you
city
go.
like Chicago, Boston, New York.
A hipster bodega.
Free-range barley.
There you go. Thank you, sir. Okay, any other questions, council? Okay, is anyone here, and anything further from the petitioner? Nothing further, sir?
We would reserve any time left for rebuttal.
Thank you, sir. Okay, if anyone is here to publicly comment on item number 5, please come forward. Go ahead, sir. You have 3 minutes, each person. And just so we have a good number of the folks who are going to come here and speak, who else is planning on speaking? If so, please raise your hand if you're able to do so. One. Okay, just one other person. And feel free, please. Go ahead, sir. Mr. Sheldon.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Curry has provided me with a speaker waiver form that has 3 names on it. Will you please acknowledge your presence here? Ken Hayek. Thank you. John Butler. Deanna Porter. Thank you. 3 additional minutes for a total of 6, please.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay. My name is Brian Curry. I have been sworn. Please bear with me. I've had a medical issue for a year, and my voice is not very strong, so I'll do the best I can.
We hear you well, sir.
Thank you. I also want to put out a disclaimer that I am on the board of South Seminole Heights. I'm a board member of that organization. I am not here speaking for that organization. I'm speaking for myself and neighbors that live right in the vicinity of where the duckweed will be and where the liquor store would be. So let me be very clear, I am not speaking for the association. My point here tonight is to give you a couple of things. One was that, and the second thing is to point out some of the issues that my neighbors, mostly about 20 homes within the vicinity and some deeper into the neighborhood, have with this liquor store. Understand, we are not, I repeat, not opposed to duckweed. I shop at duckweed. I like duckweed. Duckweed will be a good thing. What we are opposed to is a liquor store. And I'm going to try to clarify to you some of the reasons why we don't want that. Some people on Facebook, and there's a lot of people that support this whole thing, especially because it's a duckweed, and it's popular and it's good. But they compare it to the duckweed that's in Channelside. We claim that we have a different kind of situation where we live on that corner with what Councilman Goose was saying. We've got different kind of situation there, different kind of demographics. Crime is an issue where we live. I live directly behind this building and behind that parking garage, so I see it all the time. I live on West Giddens, 108 West Giddens. I would say that, postulate that the liquor store in Duckweed downtown, and I know people that have been to it, they still sell miniatures. That's where liquor stores make a lot of money. Small bottles, they make a lot of money on that. There's a lot of increase in price. So, you know, a liquor store, people say it'll be a high-end liquor store. To us, a liquor store is a liquor store is a liquor store. If I'm selling popsicles and somebody comes in and wants a popsicle, I'm going to sell them a popsicle, especially one where this is going to be located with its own separate entrance right there on that corner. So, you know, our mentioned the hotel around there. We live on Giddens. We are directly behind, and this liquor store will be directly across from the Circle K at Hillsborough and Florida Avenue. I don't know if you've ever been to that Circle K, but it is somewhat scary. People from the Dutch Motel frequent it. They frequent our street. We have people living under the bridge down at Hillsborough, the bridge at the Hillsborough River at the end of Giddens. The people that transverse our street typically tend to be not our neighbors, although they do, and they walk their dogs, and that's great. But we also have a mix of vagrancy, transients, homeless, and Dutch Motel people. So again, the liquor store there behind the Circle K is an issue. It's a hot spot for the cops are there all the time. They come on our street, so we do have that element. Trash, things like that. This is a picture directly across from the corner where the liquor store is going to be. That is a photo taken a few days ago. This is what we live with all the time. The Hart bus line is right here, and we've talked to Circle K. I personally have talked to the managers, regional managers. They do not do anything about it. We talked to Hart. They don't do anything about it. The trash is there all the time, and that trash ends up on our street, including tires. People use this as a dumping spot. Vehicle traffic on our street. Let me give you a photo of what Giddens looks like. I saw a bunch of nice photos in the staff report, but I don't think you saw these kinds of photos. This is what the Giddens looks like going towards Florida Avenue. The developers put in a small sidewalk here. It is occupied every night by a number of cars, and we're not sure why, but they are not allowed to park in the garage. The only people allowed to park in the garage are the people that live there. We have confirmed this by speaking to residents that live there, and their friends come to visit them. They're parking on our yards. They're parking on the other side of the street where it is illegal to park. I had no parking signs put up there on the north side of Giddens years ago, and they still don't. It doesn't matter. You say something to them, we'll be out in a minute, and they go in. Cars are there the next day. So we have an issue. We have cars that are parking out here. They must be visiting people. Some of the cars stay there actually for up to 48 hours or more over a weekend and never move. So it's an issue. We've got a big time issue on Giddens Avenue. We think it'll only be exacerbated with the opening of duckweed, and we know, and again, we're in favor of duckweed, but that something has to be done about the parking situation, because they're coming down Giddens. If the Red Star has something going on, they park all the way down across Highlands, down towards the river, on both sides of the street. It's not just our area of Giddens. So there's some real issues going on there with that. Giddens is not even classified as a street. I found out years ago, according to the city, it's a single lane pathway. There's no room, as you can see from these pictures here, for two vehicles to pass each other without trouble. I've talked to TPD. I have talked to Tampa Fire Rescue. They both recommended that we speak with you all. Tampa Fire Rescue says that, TPD says there's obviously an issue here. We need to do something about it. The towing thing and why people can't park inside, I assume eventually they will be, but the residents say they don't even have a space for visitors in that parking garage. There's been a rumor that the people want to charge people to park there, so therefore they're not doing that. They're staying outside. We have crack smoking going on in an alley where he showed you those trees next to my house during the day. People back there smoking. So I have given you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, sir. I sent to you all today my talking points, and you should have them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Next, please.
Thank you.
Ditto. I'm out of here. No. My name is Jeff Manzuto. I live at 411 West Violet Street. The reason why I'm here tonight, guys, I really don't come before City Council. I've been here probably years ago. Is I moved to Seminole Heights in 1996, and this community has really changed, and I think for the better. I feel lately that we're being taken advantage of as a community. We've had to fight off some things going in our park, the rowing team, the dog park, and now all of a sudden duckweed's going in. I have no problem with duckweed. I went there yesterday for the first time. Never shopped there. I think it's a great addition. The fact that you're going to put an alcohol in that neighborhood we just talked about earlier, that is our trifecta there. I call it Circle Not Okay, because every time I go there, I feel like I have to go home and take a bath. I hate going into that Circle K. You got the Dutch Motel there. You got another sleazy hotel down the street. And now you're going to put a package store there. And they say it's going to be upscale. I don't know that there's going to be a Facebook page for homeless people to know, hey, it's an upscale place, don't go there. They're gonna gravitate there. I've seen it. I'm just telling you. I know what it's like. I see it. I've gone to this artillery right up the street. If you guys have gone to the artillery on Bird, all right, there's a lot of homeless people living around there. Go online and look at when they bring a liquor store into a neighborhood. It doesn't bring the neighborhood up. Unfortunately, sometimes it brings the neighborhood down, especially in the area that we're in on Florida and Hillsborough. Heard the petitioner say, someone shouldn't have to travel after they go grocery shopping for a liquor store. Well, I don't know about you guys, but Publix is doing really well in Nebraska, and there isn't a package store close to the Publix, and they're always busy. Sometimes it's hard to get in there. I love shopping there. It's a great store right up the street. It's not far from there. We have a lot of places, and there's tons of liquor stores around as well, too. It's not that far to go to Alpine, or you can go wherever you need to go. I don't know. I don't drink. But after tonight waiting so long, I might need a drink. But I'm asking you, Seminole Heights, it's really growing, and I feel like right now with duckweed going in and adding the liquor store that we're being taken advantage of, and I'm here tonight to implore you to please deny the alcohol version of it. The grocery store is fine. I think it's a nice addition, but we do not need a packaged liquor store in that area. If you go there at night, you go around that neighborhood, go into a Circle K at night and see what I'm talking about, and you'll know why alcohol should not be in that location. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, sir, and we appreciate your sense of humor.
Oh, sure. By the way, if you guys looking for upgrade windows and doors, I sell them at West Shore Home. Thanks.
You're a funny guy.
I just want to make a few points to close. Council David Singer for the applicant. If crime is a concern, if crime is on your mind, it was certainly expressed by some of the members who spoke in the public. I would point you to the last page of your staff report. TPD has looked at this. They have no issues. If TPD had issues, they would have expressed them in the staff report. There are none. Litter was a concern. That has nothing to do with the zoning of this. That has nothing to do with granting an alcohol beverage license. Parking was addressed as a concern. The customers of Duckweed are able to park into the garage. Again, you heard Mr. Manassi say there's no parking waiver requested here. If people are going to come shop here, they can pull right into the garage and they can park. The last thing I want to address, and I went back and forth whether I was going to talk about this or not. I feel like I have to get it into the record because it's been brought up. I want to talk a little bit about homelessness, and I will be brief. The fear and the stereotypes around homelessness and alcoholism has no place in the consideration by this council of this application. It is outside the purview of the code. It is outside the purview of your jurisdiction tonight, and I'm telling you, it is difficult to keep composed when there are the purveyance of myths and stereotypes surrounding this issue. From the National Law Center on Homelessness and Poverty, the top 4 contributors to homelessness in America: the lack of affordable housing, unemployment, poverty, low wages. The 5th one up there that should be up there is lack of mental health facilities. Alcohol is not on that list, and it's not on that list for a reason, because it's a myth and it's a stereotype, and you shouldn't consider it when you're considering an alcohol beverage application. The Tampa Hillsborough Homeless Initiative lists on their website, they have a whole section of myths about homelessness, and one of them is most homeless people are addicted to drugs and alcohol. It is outside the bounds to consider alcoholism and homelessness when you're considering an alcohol beverage application from a zoning perspective. It is consistent with the comprehensive plan. It is consistent with the urban village designation in the zoning code. Competent and substantial evidence has been presented to you that it is consistent with the comp plan and the zoning code. Competent and substantial evidence has not been presented to you that this should not be approved. The applicant has met its burden, and nothing that is presented by the neighborhood can be considered competent or substantial evidence to deny this application. And I apologize for getting on my soapbox about the homelessness issue, but it is a personal point of contention. And I would ask that you consider this application as a whole, everything that we discussed tonight, staff's recommendation, the fact that the only waiver that is being requested is a distance waiver for 85 feet to a small bar. And Mr. Citro's point, I believe, was a good one, that should Duckweed exit after a number of years of operation, what we're left here is the ability for 555 square feet for package sales. Thank you very much.
Councilman Goods.
Mr. Singer, thank you for your comments, and they're well taken. But sometimes I tell people experiences are their best teachers. And I can drive down Lake Avenue and go to 23rd Street, and I can see people hanging out at a package store. I can go to 29th and Lake, and I patrol that zone, which was Zone 5. And when I would get to work at 5 o'clock in the morning, everybody would be hanging out for the package store. Or I could go to where Zone 2, my final day as a police officer, and I could look at the Circle K, the Dutch Motel, and I saw the TPD report, and I was really stunned to see 0 calls for service for that location. Well, that's a new location, that building. So it wouldn't have any calls, but I can tell you as a person who's worked that area for like 2 years.
Sir, if I can.
Mr. Shaw.
I apologize for interrupting Mr. Goods, but I just want to remind you and remind the rest of council that your decision has to be based on competent, substantial evidence in the record and not from personal experience, and to please not testify to facts that you're aware of independently. You've heard testimony tonight. You've heard the petitioner make his case. You've heard members of the public. I would ask instead that what you do is you take the staff report on page 3, the general standards of section 27-129, and apply the evidence you heard, and weigh the evidence, the veracity of the evidence, and give it whatever weight you wish and make whatever findings of fact you wish to do. Apply it to chapter 27-129, those standards, and then make that determination based on that basis. So my apologies for interrupting.
Thank you for your opinion, Mr. Shelby. We will take that under advisement. I just got concerned when I saw the TPD Criminal Intelligence Bureau report.
But what you did in that case, sir, was rather than testify to it, you made an observation based on an actual fact that has been brought forth in terms of the length of the existence of the business. So in that sense, you applied the facts to an observation, and that's relevant.
I'll yield back, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Councilman Carlson.
Question for legal. I'm sorry if this is another newbie question, but most of the time when we're looking at zoning issues, I know this is different. When we're looking at zoning issues, we look at, is it consistent with the surrounding area? This almost sounds like an upgrade to some of the, not to the neighborhood, but to the some of the businesses. Some of the evidence the neighbors gave was about, and I won't name them, but other establishments that sound like are not following the rules and have code issues, which maybe we should try to address separately to try to help the neighborhood, because this sounds like there's some difficult challenges and issues they're facing. But my question to you is, are we allowed to consider code violations by other nearby establishments as competent substantial evidence in this case?
No, that would not be competent and substantial evidence. You are correct. The correct avenue to address potential code violations would be through code enforcement on those particular violations.
Thank you. Anyone else? Just for my perspective, and I think the only waiver I see here is the 85 feet for alcohol. I think that regardless of what I'll speak for myself, regardless of what my personal sentiments may be on the issues involving alcohol, et cetera, regardless of whether I agree with Mr. Singer or anybody else or not on that issue, I don't really think that's something that's going to be relevant to the legal issues here. I think that if we use issues that are outside of our scope, we're going to open up the city for exposure, if you will, on this issue, regardless of whatever our personal sentiments may be. I don't want to say that our hands are tied. I think that's a little too far, but I think our hands are tied from considering things that we shouldn't consider, and I think we have to be very wary of that. So, just my opinion. Councilman, did you want to say something, sir?
I agree with you, and I agree with Mr. Shelby in regard to, especially with recent case law and that sort of thing, that we shouldn't, we shouldn't, we need to be careful about our own testimony. But with that said, I think that we can be a little critical in regard to the criminal report, because we all know, as a matter of fact, judicial notice, Mr. Chairman, that that's a brand new building. That address is a brand new building. I have no idea what was there before, but it's a brand new building. So the report is sort of, it's moot. So then I think we can rely on the competent, substantial testimony of the neighbors who are the next best source of information as related to crime in the area. So that's all I got to say.
And I'll let the petitioner rebut out of fairness after we're finished. Anything further, Council? Councilman Citro.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I'm on the fence about this, and I'm under direction of our council. I'm looking at 27-129 and the 5 criteria there. The use will ensure public health, safety, and general welfare if located where proposed and developed and operated according to the plan as submitted. I'm not sure about that one. The use is compatible with contiguous and surrounding properties, or the use is public necessity. I'm just looking at these things, and I'm throwing that out there. Thank you.
Anything further from council? Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
Councilman Carlson?
No, just a question for legal also, and again, a newbie question, but the same question about looking at code issues for surrounding properties. There is no, as my colleagues have said, there's no legal record for this establishment. But if there are other legal violations or police reports from other surrounding properties, is that competent substantial evidence in this case?
I would not say there could never be a case, but I'm not sure what the relevancy would be in this particular situation, that another property owner has done something that may not be correct certainly would have no bearing on a property owner coming in that has every intent to comply with the law. And in these proceedings, you have to assume that the property owner will comply with the law. So I'm not sure what the relevancy would be to tie it to one of the factors in 27-129 on this set of facts.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further? Okay, I'll give the applicant a couple minutes to rebut, if at all. 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure there's much more to say. I mean, I think we've demonstrated a pretty clear case that this is consistent with the zoning code and consistent with the comprehensive plan, consistent with 129. I've been doing this a long time, not in front of this particular group, but in front of your predecessors and some of you who have been on this council. It is very, very rare, if ever, that we talk about demographics of an area when we talk about zoning an AB establishment. I would caution this council against saying it's appropriate perhaps in one part of the city and not appropriate in another part of the city when the future land use is identical and when the zoning is identical. We're here in the urban village. There's one waiver separating you from already existing AB use. You look at that corridor, there's AB uses all up and down that corridor. Are you applying the same standards of review to this that you applied to those? That's what we're asking for here, and we believe we've met that burden and far exceeded that burden. And so we'd ask for your approval.
Anything further from council? I again reiterate my remarks for whatever counts in my opinion. Relying on issues that are outside of the scope, I think will lead us to I'll just put it diplomatically, a dangerous path. And I think we should be wary of that. May I have a motion to close?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to close by Councilman Miranda, second by Councilman Escaco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Oh. Motion to close.
I'll
Did
close,
you?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And I
there were
think
several of us
Councilman
that did that.
Citro, do you feel comfortable taking this one, sir?
No, I do not, Council.
Okay,
Excuse me, Mr. Chair,
That's
I
all right.
apologize.
I'm not the Pope. Councilman Miranda.
Sure, man, I'm not comfortable on anything, but I'll take the answer.
Yes, sir.
Let me get to it right now, just said it over here. Item number 5, file number AB 219-19. An ordinance being presented for first reading consideration. An ordinance approving a special use permit SU for alcohol beverage sales, small venue package sales, off-premise consumption only, and making lawful the sale of beverage regardless of alcohol content, beer, wine, and liquor, at or from that certain plot, or tract of land located at 5244 or 5246 North Florida Avenue, Tampa, Florida, is more particularly described in Section 2 that all ordinance or parts of ordinances in conflict are repealed, providing an effective date.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Miranda, a second by Councilman Carlson. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Roll call.
Roll call vote. Dingfelder,
Nay.
Goods,
Nay.
Maniscalco, Citro,
Nay.
Miranda,
Aye.
Carlson, and Vieira.
Yes, aye.
The motion failed with Dingfelder, Goods, Maniscalco, and Citro voting no.
Thank you, Jim, and thank you for your continued work at this time of the hour.
Is there another motion that is in order?
Anybody else wish to make an alternative motion?
We're gonna make it.
The sooner you make it, the sooner we get out. Okay.
What, the chief, well, the thing is, you have the staff report, and you also have the waiver criteria as well.
Mr. Singer? Mr. Singer? Want to at least wait?
We're not done yet. Yes.
Well,
The motion failed. Therefore, there was no action by council, official action, because the motion that was made did not pass.
Okay.
So another motion would be in order to effectuate council's action. Any official council action requires, under the charter, 4 affirmative votes.
Go ahead, sir.
Would,
Oh, I'm sorry.
do I have an opportunity to address the council?
It's the chair's discretion.
Very briefly, if you have a question procedurally.
I do have a procedural
Oh,
question. But
We have to reopen.
Move to reopen the hearing.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Maniscalco, a second by
I'm not a lawyer, but I can tell you one thing, the crowd is left. And you all can do what you want.
yeah, I don't know that it's appropriate, with all due respect to David, I don't know if it's appropriate to reopen. People did leave, and all we're doing is going from that motion to the next motion, and which is our purview, not the purview of the audience.
Does this jeopardize the record? If there's
Well,
any possibility, we'll just.
Well, what'll happen is probably there will be a request or a suggestion or additional statements of
We
the
could get in
attorney.
trouble. You're right.
So the question, and the fact that the people chose to leave, frankly, we can't control at this point in time.
Well, the petitioner was leaving
but-
too. Out of courtesy, I just called him in so he could hear what the motion was.
And I understand the procedurally, it's difficult, but that being the case, again, it's council's purview whether it wishes to reopen, but Mr. Chairman,
will.
council can deny that as well.
I will take the cautious route and keep it closed.
Okay.
Just because folks have left, and in case if there was any substantive requests made or anything of that nature, I think that that's something that we could have problems with.
Do I move to close the hearing?
No, it's already been.
No,
You can withdraw-
I
you can-
never voted.
You never voted, you want to withdraw your motion then, if that's your pleasure?
I withdraw the motion, sure.
Councilman.
All right, I'll make a motion to deny the petition. Let me get organized here. I'll move to deny petition AB 2-19-00019, special use request property located at 5244.
What was that application, sir? I'm sorry.
AB 2-19-0000019. Thank you, Mr. Shelby. Am I on the right one?
Number 5.
Yeah, yes, number 5, AB 2-19-19 is what I have on the agenda.
Okay, that's fine.
Mr. Shelby,
Yes.
Mr. Shelby, before the motion is on the floor,
Yes.
would it be proper to ask for a brief continuance before Mr. Dingfelder makes his motion, so that we might discuss with the neighborhood association and the residents that were here, perhaps a compromise position?
Well, council, frankly, the time to have requested a continuance would have been before the close of the hearing initially, as opposed to this stage of the process of the proceedings.
Understood. Perhaps it might be the pleasure of the council, or your legal might have a suggestion.
Just by way of suggestion, because the neighborhood has left and they are not able to be here and participate, if another hearing was to be set, it would need to be renoticed. But rather than denying and potentially going through another procedure, council could entertain a noticed continuance. I just throw that out there as an additional potential option.
Councilman Cross.
Unless somebody was in the middle of something, I would like to make a motion that for a notice continuance.
We'd have to reopen, would we not?
And now let's deal with and let me,
Excuse me, I'm just sorry, Mr. Chairman.
This doesn't, by reopening, do we in any way jeopardize the record, but by having the notice continuance, does that effectively deal with those issues?
I'm sorry.
Mr. Shelby, if you have a suggestion?
Well, here's my concern, counsel. My concern is that for whatever reason, and it could be the lack of clarity to all parties, the fact that the motion failed did not actually cause the action to be completed. It requires an affirmative action of 4 votes. Having a noticed continued public hearing has the potential of not serving the purpose that you would think it would have, because it would open the door to questions as to members of the public as to why this is being renoticed, and it recalls them back for what purpose. So I think there's a fear that I see of causing more confusion to the process by having a renotice for a new notice for a public hearing without really the explanation. And it changes the procedural process and posture of where we stand right now. That's my only concern from my perspective. If you disagree with me, I'm willing to hear and let council make the decision.
I don't disagree with what you have said, Mr. Shelby. My suggestion would be that since the motion failed, at times council has, when faced with a motion and an ability to resolve it, it simply automatically continues or something along those lines. So it's not completely different. However, what I would suggest is that at this point you would simply remove it from your agenda, and the applicant would then have to notice, and they could perhaps clarify the purpose of the renotice. That was my suggestion. I also hear and understand Mr. Shelby's concerns. I think those are both potential avenues that you could use. Like I said, I simply supplied it as a potential suggestion to try and make sure that everyone was clear what happened.
Let me ask a question, if I may. If there's a notice or a motion to deny, and it fails to get 4 votes because somebody says, I think this should be continued, does that kick it to the next one?
That would, under your rules. Am I wrong, Mr. Shelby, about that? If they are unable to get a vote with 4 affirmative votes, would that automatically continue it to the next hearing under the rules?
Yes, if it were, well, yeah, what you'd be left with ultimately is you'd be left with thinking it through. You had a motion to affirm that was denied because it failed to get 4 votes. If you have a motion to deny that was denied because it failed to get 4 votes, then the only rational motion left that would be appropriate would be a motion to continue. So if somebody were to change their vote, then it would come back at the next regular meeting. No, it wouldn't have to come back. It could not, because it's not a tie. It would just be a motion that failed. So therefore, the only motion left on the table would be for somebody to announce why they're changing their vote on the basis of competent substantial evidence and vote therefore again, or to vote to continue. This is much more confusing than ultimately it should be. So council, what I'm going to ask is, based on what Ms. Morris says, I do agree with her analysis, and I would let it be council's pleasure on how council wishes to proceed. So basically, whatever council wishes to do in this case, if it wishes to continue, you have to reopen the hearing for the purposes of continuing and having the notice train to be able to bring it back. Or would you say you remove it from the agenda where it wouldn't be a refiling, or do you just continue it?
If it was simply removed from the agenda, and then there would be no action by council, and then it could be renoticed for another hearing.
I just have a technical question for staff, either Ms. Moore or zoning staff, one or the other. I appreciate Mr. Singer's gesture. Well, compromise is always a good thing, and finding a middle ground, that's great. I'm trying to figure out, without opening and without asking Mr. Singer, because I don't want to go there, I'm asking you two, what other options are there? That it's not like you don't have just beer and wine anymore, do you? No liquor?
You can do beer and wine as convenience goods, as a special use one if you meet all codes.
Okay, so that could be an option.
Mm-hmm.
And
What's-
these are site plan, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Ryan.
no, no.
These are site plan controlled districts, so there are the ability to place conditions on them. On the site plan becomes
For
the
additional
permit.
site plan. All right, with that said, it sounds like there's a few options that Mr. Singer might be able to go present to the neighborhood. I'm comfortable with reopening solely for the purpose of continuing a renoticed hearing. And I apologize to the neighborhood for the inconvenience of them having to come back.
Okay, we have
I'm just going to ask for a motion to
That's my
reopen.
motion.
A motion to
Yeah.
reopen.
we have a motion by Councilman Dingfelder, a second by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Now, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to inquire of the petitioner's attorney whether he has any objection to this process and whether it's his request for a continuance.
Mr. Shelby, David Singer for the petitioner. I have no objection to the process. I can't opine as to the properness of the council's action. I would leave that to you. But I will say, as I stand here, I would certainly not be disappointed if the council's prerogative is to continue for the purpose of compromise and negotiation.
Well, then, my question to you specifically, is it your request of this city council to seek a continuance, and do you then agree to renotice it?
Now that the hearing is reopened, it would be my request, the petitioner's request for a continuance, and we would certainly undertake the burden of renotice.
Do I hear a motion?
May I just ask a
Of course, by all
question?
means.
Mr. Singer,
Sir.
to all fairness to the community,
Yes.
how far are you planning on noticing out? Are you 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? What do you feel would be appropriate going back to the community and saying, here's some things we might want to change. We want your input. 30 days, 60 days, 90 days?
Kristen Mora, Legal Department. We will be working with him because we want to give him time. If he is able to work something out with the neighbors, then he would need to submit a new site plan with enough time before the hearing. So we're looking at a time frame out, but we will figure that out with him offline from City Council since it has to be noticed. You don't have to determine the date at this point.
Thank you very much. Mr. Singer, dialogue solves everything.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Councilman Carlson?
Motion to continue.
Yes, sir. Okay, we have a motion to continue by Councilman Carlson. I believe it was the second by Councilman Maniscalco or Councilman Booth. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And that was conditioned on a notice.
Yes.
Noticed hearing.
Understood.
Mr. Chairman, Jim Cruz, City Clerk's Office. To clarify the motion, it is to continue to a date to be determined, and it will be noticed.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we go to unfinished business, motions, et cetera. Councilman Dingfelder.
Nothing.
Councilman Goods.
Mr. Chairman, we'll make it real quick. I'd like to make a motion to give a commendation to the President of the Northeast Community Civic Association, Mr. Joe Barr, for his tremendous work in the community.
Second.
Do you have a date for that, sir?
Yes,
Anytime?
September 19, 2019.
The what, I'm sorry?
September 19, 2019.
Is that because we already have, I think, 3 commendations that day,
I'll move it to the
Councilman?
then I'll move it to the next.
Okay, we can do that. I'm so sorry. Do we have the calendar? I know we have, in disclosure, actually, 2 of those are mine, so.
It's okay. I can move it to the next one. That's fine.
October 24th?
Okay, October 26th, is that good, sir?
That's fine.
24th, yeah.
You said 21st or 26th?
October 24th is the
24th.
City Council workshop session.
I'm sorry, Councilman Goods, what was your original date, sir?
It was the September 19th.
Okay, we can do the 20, wait, what was your date, Mr. Crew?
The workshop session for October is on October 24th. That's when the commendations are scheduled.
Okay, there you go. Is that okay, sir?
That's fine.
Okay, great, thank you, sir. Anything else, sir?
Yeah. And I also like to make a motion to give a commendation to Mr. Joseph and Ms. Norma Robinson for their work with the Silver Spring Neighborhood Association and their contribution to the history with the Silver Springs Museum and Cultural Center. October 24th.
Okay, we have a motion, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, anything else, sir?
That's it, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Maniscalco.
Just to wish everyone an enjoyable Labor Day weekend.
Councilman Citra.
I bid everyone the same, but please, be careful. Make sure that you have everything you need. Storm is a-coming. and everybody have a safe Labor Day.
Yes, sir. Councilman Miranda. Councilman Carlson. Okay. Receive and file. We have a motion, second by Councilman Goods. All in favor? Any opposed?
Mr. Chairman, who is the second on Mr. Good's first commendation motion? Dingfelder, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We are adjourned. Oh, we are adjourned. I got to prepare for a demo.
Thank you, sir.